Morning everybody, it's Rob, Yoga Dads. Welcome to day 17 of the Summer Stretch Challenge. There have been so many days now, I almost couldn't remember how many days we'd got through. As I've said before, if you've been here to every session, fantastic. Really pleased that you've been able to find that time, that 15 minutes a day to join me for a summer stretch. And if this is the first time you're with me or you've just been dipping in and out, then welcome. I'm really pleased and honoured that you've taken this time out today. As I say each day, this is much about raising awareness and donations for the charities that we're supporting through this fundraising campaign and challenge. So this week I'm shining a light on Suicide Prevention Bristol and its incredible work locally. One of the statistics I looked at last night was the fact that over the first 6 months of this year, they've kind of actively prevented 150 suicide attempts in the Bristol area, both through their foot patrols and also their backroom staff on their support line. So it's amazing, to be honest, that what they can do. But equally, you know, they've launched an emergency appeal because they're so short of funding at the moment. So anything that you can do, you know, dipping your hand in a pocket, just a few pounds here or there, can really make a difference to these type of organisations to keep those emergency services running. Anyway, let's get started. So we're going to start today actually on a seated position, so a comfortable seated position. So just to say that if that feels uncomfortable for you, then feel free to use a chair. Okay, let's get going. Right. I feel a fair way from the camera here, but hopefully you can see and hear me okay. So I'm starting in that comfortable position. As I've said on the past few days, I've got a block here. You could easily use a thick book, that type of thing, just to provide a bit of extra support under the tailbone, sitting bones, just to allow the knees just to fall forward. Hips to open up, inner thighs to open up as well. So I'm going to stay without a block, and I'm going to place my palms across my knees and just close my eyes. And as we join this virtual 15-minute space that we've got together this morning in a comfortable seated position, just feeling that grounding down through the tailbone, through the backs of the legs, towards the floor, while at the same time the crown of the head reaches up towards the ceiling or sky above you. Just allowing the elbows just to draw very subtly, very slightly in towards the ribs, just to create that little bit more space across the chest, that openness, expansiveness, space in the body, shoulder blades knitting together. Not just creating space for the body as we move, but also for the breath. And just bringing attention to the breath just for a moment. So feeling that subtle body movement each time you breathe in and out. Drawing energy into the body each time you inhale. And just allowing the body to soften and sink down each time you exhale. Nice soft gaze, open the eyes. So we'll just start with some hip rotations. And again, this can be as deep or as shallow as works for you. When we do this in a chair-based sequence, we have to do it with our fingers interlocked, and we just rotate around in that way. So we'd have our knees that little bit wider than the hips, feet that little bit wider than the hips as well. So if you're in that position, then go for that. Otherwise, if you're sitting down on the floor, just start rotating around in one direction, just still maintaining that space across the chest and the shoulders. And just really focus on that movement, that space that you're creating across the hips in one direction and then the other, really allowing that upper body weight just to sink down as you hinge across the hips. Maybe you're integrating the breath through that movement. Exhaling as you fold forward, inhaling as you lift back, and just one more time in either direction, and then back to the front. Okay, I'm going to turn myself sideways on here. You stay facing forward. So we're going to stay either with the support of the block or if you want a chair. So with our hands now alongside us. So fingers just tensing underneath the shoulders. So lifting the chest up, expansiveness across the chest. Tailbone, length along the spine all the way through the crown of the head. Now we're going to extend our arms up and overhead. Shoulders nice and relaxed away from the ears. And just folding forward. So just allowing the hands now just to land down towards the floor. So feel free if you need to, just to use a block with a bit of extra support in front of you, just to maintain that height, that length, all the way along the spine, from the back of the neck down towards the tailbone. Otherwise, just start crawling those fingers forward until you find the point at which it starts to feel almost not uncomfortable, but that you can feel that challenge. You can feel the work in the body. So inhaling to lengthen. Upper arms rotating away from the shoulders, elbow creases up towards the ceiling or the sky above, and just keep walking those hands forward, walking those hands forward. Still pressing down through all four corners of the palms, hips tilting back towards the bottom of the mat, and allowing the head just to sink down between the upper arms. Really feeling as you breathe into the side body, into the back body, creating space between each vertebrae, and then walking yourself back in again. Now I'm going to stay in this position. We'll take our fingers now flat down, so still below the shoulders, fingers pointing forward towards the top of the mat. We're going to tuck our tailbone under, press down through the palms, and we're going to gently lift up. So we might find that we just go this far, so our pelvis just kind of almost opening up, hips opening up, just as we press down. Or otherwise we can lift the hips fully off the mat, keeping the chin tucked in nice and close to the chest, and maybe even tilting the head back. Still pressing down through the palms as you lift the hips up, pressing down through the knees. And feeling that extension, that length along the spine. Any sharp pain, pinching at all in the lower back, then just easing yourself back down. And then slowly everybody lowering yourself back down towards the floor again. Now take ourselves into an all fours position. Move that block away to the side. So hands out to shoulder distance apart, knees underneath the hips. And we're going to inhale, lifting our head up towards the ceiling. Exhaling, chin to chest. Do that 4 more times, pressing down through the palms again. Nice firm connection through all 4 corners of the hands. And maybe even closing the eyes. And just tuning into the space, creating in the body, integrating the breath through this movement. Inhaling as you look up, lift up, arching the spine, tailbone towards the ceiling. Exhaling, rounding the spine, shoulder blades separate, tailbone tucking under. 1 more. And then back down again. So bring the head back into a neutral position between the arms and just gently swing the hips from side to side. So just starting to open up again across the hips, inner thighs, and maybe introducing some kind of rotation there as well. So exploring whatever movement feels good to you here. So as we were doing that hip rotation in that seated position just a moment ago, maybe taking the hips back towards the heels, upper body across the wrists in one direction, and then the other, and just whatever shape works. Maybe it's circles, maybe it's squares, maybe it's figure eights. And again, just breathing into that space that we're creating in the body. We slowly warm ourselves up. We'll bring ourselves back into a neutral position again. That neutral all fours position, taking our hands now out towards the top of the mat and lowering our hips down towards the heels as we sink our head down between the upper arms. Now if that feels uncomfortable at all, across the hips, maybe across the knees as well, just use a cushion, pillow, that type of thing. Just provide a little bit of extra height, a little bit of extra support for the back body. Just focus as much as possible on lengthening all the way along from the fingers, along the side body down towards the hips, tailbone reaching back. And don't worry too much if the head can't land down onto the floor. And if needs be, just cross the forearms over one another and just allow the forehead just to rest down. The chest reaching down towards the floor, upper body sinking down towards the thighs, and just tuning into the breath. Each time you breathe in, just feeling that light lift along the body, and each time you breathe out, you're sinking in. Now keeping the hands in the same place now as we lift our upper body forward, shoulders across the wrists, pressing down through the balls of the feet as we lift our knees now up off the floor, hips towards the ceiling or sky above, Maybe slightly walking the feet in, feet hip distance apart, and pressing up and back through the hands along the side body, all the way along the back of the legs and down towards the heels. Now lifting one heel up and then the other, and just slowly walking them out as you lengthen along the back of one leg, all the way from the heel to the hip socket, and then the same on the opposite side. Okay, bringing the feet back into a neutral position, keeping the knees bent as much as you need, and then slowly walking the hands back in towards the feet. Okay, pressing down through the heels and lifting yourself up into a forward fold. So hands up onto the shins first with a nice flat back. Exhaling to fold forward, keeping those knees bent, forearms over one another, crossing the arms, the hands over the opposite elbows, and just gazing back between the thighs and just allowing the upper body just to sink down towards the floor. Keeping the knees bent, arms away, fingers towards the floor. Inhaling up, lifting the arms up and overhead and to centre. Arms down by the side, and just roll the shoulders forward and back a few times. And just helping to ease any tension along the neck, across the shoulders and down the arms. We'll take our arms now up and overhead. Exhaling to fold forward, hinging at the hips, keeping those knees bent as much as you need. Hands to the shins with a flat back. Exhaling to fold forward, bending the knees, walking the hands forward now into a plank position. So option here to keep the knees lifted or have the knees lowered down. Key things here, shoulders above the wrists, tailbone tucking under, feeling that drawing in of the belly button towards the spine, length all the way along from the back of the head, down towards the heels. Whether you've got the knees lifted or lowered, pressing down to all four corners of the palms, really feeling that strength as the front body lifts up towards the sky. Now everybody slowly know their knees down, slowly taking the chin down towards the floor, keeping the elbows tucked in towards the ribs just to maximise that space across the chest, and tucking the toes, heels towards one another, pressing down through the palms underneath the shoulders. Inhaling, lift up, and exhaling back down. We'll do that twice more. Inhaling, lift up, chest forward between the upper arms, exhaling back down. One more time. And again, just go as far as feels comfortable for you for this back bend. Tucking the toes back under, feet hip distance apart, pressing down through the palms, lifting the upper body up, maybe even lifting the knees. In fact, all of us lift the knees back into our downward dog position. Option here to take yourself back down into the all fours if that feels a better variation, or that poppy pose, so where we have our hips towards the heels, fingers reaching out towards the top of the mat, keeping the knees bent, walking the hands back towards the feet again, back into that forward fold position, bending the knees, arms back up and overhead, and hands to the heart. Do that again. Inhaling, lift up, exhaling, fold forward, hands to shins, back down again, nice and heavy in the head, down towards the floor, keeping those knees bent as much as you need, walking the hands back out, back into that plank position, option to keep the knees lifted or lowered, inhaling to lengthen, exhaling to sink the upper body, chin, chest, hips towards the floor, and tucking the toes when you get down there. Inhaling, pressing down through the palms, lifting the head up. Exhaling back down. And this time we'll inhale and look over our left shoulder, down towards the left heel, back down, across the right shoulder, keeping that left shoulder back. Do that once more on either side. Elbows still drawing in towards the ribs. Hips nice and heavy, sinking down towards the floor, tucking the toes, hands pressing down through the floor, pressing up into our plank position, either with the knees lifted or lowered, and then pressing up again, hips towards the ceiling, the sky above us, as we lift back up into our downward dog position. And again, option here, all fours position, or that hips to heels variation with the fingers pointing out forward, along towards the top of the mat. And whichever variation you find yourself in, you allowing the breath to kind of open up that space all the way along the body. In the downward dog, just lifting one heel and then the other. Just feeling that length that we're creating all the way along from the fingertips down towards the heels. Slowly lowering the knees back down towards the floor. Hands out to shoulder distance. We'll inhale, lift the head up. As we inhale and arch the spine. Exhaling chin to chest. Rounding the spine upwards. Twice more. And back down. Final one. Even pressure through the palms. Opening up along the full length of the spine. And then taking the hips back towards the heels again. Arms out in front. Head sinking down towards the floor. Fingers reaching forward. Tailbone reaching back. Slowly walking the hands back in towards the knees. Bringing yourself back to a cross-legged position where we began. The hands back across the knees again. Closing the eyes just for a moment. And just settling back into this space again. We close out our time together. Just tuning into how the body now feels. The fluidity, length, depth of the breath. Your state of mind. Hopefully this has set you up nicely for the day. Nice soft gaze, open the eyes. Thank you for joining me this morning. I hope you've really enjoyed the session. I'll be back again with day 18 tomorrow. This session will also be up on YouTube a little bit later on. We'll just move forward for just a moment. And yeah, so feel free as normal to spread the message, spread the word. I'll be putting on some stats about Suicide Prevention Bristol over the course of the week, just to really do. So again, just feel free to share that as far and wide as possible. And otherwise, have an awesome day, and we will see you tomorrow. Namaste.